right. I'm at the National Fire Academy, and sitting across from me is Superintendent Eriks Gabliks. Eriks, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, my career in the fire service started as a volunteer firefighter in Adelphia, New Jersey. So one of my friends told me I should join up, and I did. And the next thing you know, I was a firefighter, and I went to the County Fire Academy. A few years later, as I was working up the ranks to become an officer, I went to the County Fire Academy again for a 2-day National Fire Academy class that they were hosting. I attended the class. It was great. That eventually led me here to the National Fire Academy for some additional classes, and then eventually I became a lifelong student of NFA classes and other professional development opportunities. So what happened for me is started as a volunteer firefighter, then continued in the fire service in New Jersey, then moved to Oregon after being married. Was part of Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue for a number of years. And then I became the state training director in Oregon. So my role kind of changed from being a student to being then an advocate for the National Fire Academy. Because the National Fire Academy delivers 9 2-day classes to each state across the country free of charge. So I wanted to make sure that we got our 9 classes, and then I was also more than happy to take classes from other states that couldn't deliver their 9. So we wanted to make sure that we were giving our career volunteer firefighters in Oregon a lot of opportunities for classes, and NFA obviously met that niche. In addition to being a state training director, I was also the president of the North American Fire Training Directors, which represents all 50 states and our Canadian provinces. And there, of course, from a political standpoint, we wanted to make sure that the National Fire Academy and the U.S. Fire Administration was not only healthy financially, but also to meet its obligations from legislative actions, which is to serve the nation's fire service. So pretty neat to be part of that. And then also I became a member of the Board of Visitors here at the National Fire Academy. So that is very similar to a board of trustees at a college or university. It's a presidential White House appointment. So I served on the board for a number of years. And the board's mission is in federal law, which is that the board ensures that the National Fire Academy has the resources to meet the needs of our career volunteer and EMS providers across the country, is funded to meet those needs, and that the facilities also meet the needs. So the Board of Visitors is kind of a guardian, if you will, of the campus and the programs, and can ask Congress and the White House for the things that the fire administration can, because they're empowered to basically give a report each year to the White House about how we're doing.
So, I mean, you start out as a volunteer in New Jersey, and you end up as superintendent of the National Fire Academy, and along the way you had a presidential appointment.
Yes. Yeah.
That wasn't that. I'm guessing that wasn't part of your plan.
No, no. My plan was, well, a couple of things. One is my plan was never to move to Oregon, right? I left my family and my friends and moved west to marry the woman of my dreams, and that was a great opportunity. And as a result, I did things in Oregon that I would have never done in New Jersey. I mean, I never thought I would be a state training director, and I was, and ran a very successful program.
Tualatin's a pretty progressive department, from what I know.
It's a very progressive department.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It serves 3 counties. With a career volunteer organization. So it's a combination department, very progressive. And then the state of Oregon was also very unique because the state of Oregon is not a very large state as far as public safety provider. So roughly 13,000 firefighters serving 4 million people, of which 70% are volunteer, about 6,000 police officers, and that includes city, county, state, tribal. So everybody works really well together. A couple of things I did in Oregon that was kind of unique, helped design the new state academy, so a 235-acre facility that has over 15 buildings that serves all public safety providers. So we had a city village in the back with city streets buildings that allowed us to do scenario-based training. Obviously, we did the regulation side with the certification. So just something that was pretty neat. And then obviously, with my time at the National Fire Academy, I also went through the Executive Fire Officer program like you're going through. And I'm proud to have the certificate here in my office that I met that milestone. So it's a pretty neat opportunity.
Yeah. So, I mean, granted, you were in charge of the training in Oregon, but the move to the National Fire Academy is kind of a different. There's no hose here. There's no forcible entry tools here. It's a different kind of training, but it's still, I think, critical.
Sure.
To the fire service.
Yeah, and there's like there's 2 parts to this, right? So on one hand, why would I apply? So when the announcement came out, I looked at it and I talked to my wife, and the National Fire Academy has always been near and dear to me for a couple of reasons. One is that the classes, the professional development opportunities that I received from this organization, the network that I've made and still maintain is amazing. And I always valued the organization because it's helped me personally and professionally. The other thing is to make sure that the organization continues to meet the needs of our firefighters across the country. And it's, depending on who I talk to, if I meet with volunteer firefighters, they'll say, well, the National Fire Academy is just for career people. If I talk to career groups, they say, well, you're just for volunteers. And the honest answer is we're for both, right? It just depends on who you want to ask. But
that's just a reason for them not to come, right?
But we reach 25,000 people a year on campus, another 75,000 off campus. So the organization is amazing. And for me, it was a chance to do something I always have cared about. And it's not that I didn't like Oregon anymore. I love my job, but I was there for 30 years, the last 10 as the director of the state agency. So it was time to, I think, move on. And in part, you don't want to stay anywhere too long where you get stale, right? You want to stay relevant. You want to stay connected. And I was. But I always also thought it was healthy for the organization to kind of have a new leadership role come in. And then, of course, for me coming to the National Fire Academy, it allows me to bring my talents and skills here to this organization and kind of do the things that I see needing to be done across the country.
Yeah, we talk on the podcast sometimes about making sure that you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then once you get to that comfortable point, it's time to move on.
Yeah. And that was the one thing. And I think it really is a very nice connection to what the superintendent does because, as an agency director, as a fire chief, you are managing relationships and you're building partnerships. And that's what the National Fire Academy is all about, managing relationships and building partnerships. We're serving, in theory, every firefighter in the United States. We are the National Fire Academy. But what's interesting is, and it ties into your question, a lot of my coworkers, when I said I'm coming to the National Fire Academy, they go, geez, how many fire trucks are there? There must be thousands, right? Because they're thinking of this giant fire academy with 40-story burn buildings and people climbing ladders all day. And the honest answer is there isn't a single fire truck here on campus, right? We have a burn range where we train fire investigators, but we bring in a local fire company to extinguish the fires that we start there for fire investigation. So, our fire department is right up the street here in Emmitsburg, and it's Vigilant Hose Company. So, you won't find a fire truck here. You won't learn how to pump an engine here. You won't learn how to throw a ladder here. You won't put on a defibrillator on somebody here. You won't take somebody's blood pressure here because that's not what we do, right? We're the National Fire Academy, and it goes back to the vision of this organization being built. Because there's a report that a lot of your listeners probably have read called America Burning.
We hope they've read.
Right.
Or at least listened to.
Right. And we're in the process of updating that because it's been a few years. So we're updating America Burning because of the wildland urban interface issues that we see on the news. Not anymore seasonal, but year-round, honestly. Previous U.S. Fire Administrator Keith Bryant directed staff to also do a WUI edition of America Burning. So both of those should be coming out in the fall. But I share that because the vision within America Burning, just under 50 years ago, because we're not a very old organization, was that the American Fire Service needed to have a facility very similar to West Point. And not that we are training soldiers, but we're training firefighters, fire leaders, current and future, to do very difficult tasks. So that was the vision, to have the National Fire Academy develop our current and future leaders, but not to do what's done at the local state level. So we're not replacing what they're doing. We're not copying what they're doing. We're really supporting what they do. So the class executive fire officer that you're here for, you won't find that anywhere else in the country. Our community risk reduction program, fire investigation. So we do things that are niche markets for us that we're not competing with somebody else at a state or local level. So it's pretty exciting to be here.
Yeah. No, I see what the training that you guys are putting out is what the future of where the fire service needs to be going. So you're always out there a little bit past where probably most firefighters realize that we need to be. But you said the National Fire Academy is not that old, and I don't know that most people realize that because it did come out of the U.S. Fire Administration, being born out of America Burning. And can you tell us a little bit about the facility here? And you've said in another interview that I was reading that you consider it, hallowed grounds, and it really is.
It is hallowed grounds, and for a couple of reasons. So as your listeners imagine the National Fire Academy, Like we said, you won't find a fire truck. You won't find a burned building. That's not what we do. But you will find something that looks very similar to an Ivy League college campus.
Yeah.
It is more than 150 acres in our coverage here in Emmitsburg, Maryland. Some of the buildings on campus are honestly more than 200 years old. So the crossroads of the Civil War came through this area.
It's a beautiful campus.
Yeah, we had the Army of the Potomac here. And after the Civil War, both the North and South treated their wounded here. So the campus is historic in that way.
Right.
We maintain the buildings because they're under National Registry in their historic era. So we don't change things exterior wise.
Right.
We do have things now that we didn't have 200 years ago. For example, air conditioning.
Yeah. We thank you. We thank you.
And as it's 90 degrees, people are happy about that. But we're very proud of the campus and the landscape here. So we maintain that. But it's hallowed ground also because some of your listeners may have been here. Some of them may have seen us online. But we're also honored to be the home of the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. So that memorial is prominently here on campus. It honors all of our fallen firefighters, career and volunteer, structural, wildland, aircraft firefighters in one single memorial where our nation pays respect to those lives lost.
Right.
Also, for those firefighters who have died before the National Memorial was created, the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation has now established a Walk of Honor, which are paver stones that are engraved with the names of firefighters that died, some in the 1800s, early 1900s, and they're here on campus so that all of our fallen firefighters are in one location and honored appropriately.
Right.
Each October, we host a ceremony here on campus in partnership with the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. We support their efforts, but that is a commitment that's made whenever there's a firefighter that dies in the line of duty. And that commitment is that we'll never forget their sacrifice.
Right.
That's important to the family. That's important to the coworkers. And that annual ceremony each year allows us to reflect and honor those men and women that gave their all to make our communities better. So we're honored to have that here. And also part of having our students here allows them to not only see that and experience it, but it also ties into the importance of our training mission. As you mentioned, sometimes we're a little bit ahead of where the fire service is, and we see that as our place, which is changing culture.
Yeah.
Right. If there's safety protocols that we can cover in classes, new elements coming out, leadership issues, lessons learned from other events, that's what we're all about. Right. Provide training to build that network, but also to stimulate that discussion that sometimes is uncomfortable, but needs to happen in order for us to develop our leaders.
Well, and there are other. I don't know if it's right to call them memorials on campus, but the Fallen Firefighters Memorial is so central to campus because, if you haven't been here, all of the dorms are on one side of the campus, and to get to your classroom space every day, you're really walking past that memorial, and it really is impactful. So if you haven't ever been here, consider coming just for that. I'd say come for class, but just for that. Because it really is. There's another memorial for 9/11, which is a really kind of a striking memorial because it's so it's ambitious.
Yes,
it really is. And then I honestly don't know what I read about it last night when I walked past it, but by the C building is another memorial.
It's the Beck's Memorial, which honors our emergency management providers across the country. And way back, some of your older listeners may remember it used to be called Civil Defense.
Okay.
Right. So that's the memorial up front for those people that were involved in civil defense or emergency management that unfortunately gave their lives helping communities after a disaster. Right. Yeah. And the 9/11 memorial that you mentioned, rightfully so, because this year we're honoring the 20th anniversary of that tragic event and the countless lives lost.
Yeah. So is there something planned for that?
So this year, because September 11th is on a weekend, we'll be working with our colleagues from Connecticut. We host state weekends for a lot of the East Coast states here on campus on Saturdays and Sundays. So that's Connecticut State Weekend.
Okay.
So our staff is working with the Fallen Firefighters Foundation, the Connecticut State Fire Service Program, and they're going to have a memorial ceremony on Saturday morning before they start their classes here.
Okay. Yep. That'll be great. Yeah. All right. So specific to the NFA, and we should point out that campus isn't just the NFA. It's technically the NETC,
correct,
the National Emergency
Training
Center.
Yes.
So there are other curriculums being taught here, but for our firefighters, who can come to the NFA?
Sure. And I would say the same is true for EMI. So Emergency Management Institute is our on-campus partner. So National Fire Academy is more associated with fire and EMS than EMI, but it's not uncommon for firefighters and EMS personnel to go to EMI classes.
Right.
For example, EMI has a fantastic public information officer program. So people that are going to be handling media, social media, things like that, they have classes on evacuation. They also do the incident management team position-specific classes. So you'll find fire service people over on that side of the campus too, and we have a really good relationship.
Right.
For the National Fire Academy side of the campus, like I mentioned, about 25,000 students come through our doors every year from all across the country, and honestly, internationally. We have international students here intermixed with our classes, not right now because of the COVID pandemic, but when I came through my EFO class, we had a chief fire officer from Hong Kong in our class. So, that brings a whole different dimension in addition to being in the class with people like you are from every corner of the country, from different size departments, from different geographic areas, different political beliefs. But we're all fire EMS providers, so we come together here to learn. But who comes to the National Fire Academy is everyone that's connected to the fire service. So the process is really straight up. We have an electronic catalog, so people can go to our webpage. It's simple. Just Google National Fire Academy, hit admissions button, and it'll take you to our catalog, and you can look through the offerings that we have here. So it could be incident management. It could be supervision. It could be fire prevention. It could be youth fire setter. Hazmat leadership. So we offer hundreds of classes here on campus, and they're all free of charge. So the key for people wanting to come is figure out what you want to come to. We have an electronic application process, and it's a very simple process. And the key is tell us what you do in your career volunteer fire department that matches up the prerequisites for the course, and why are you coming here? And if you could answer that, then our admissions people will try to find you a seat here in the class. Now, keep in mind, it's competitive, right? So we have people from across the country wanting to come here, but we will do what we can to find room for you here at the Academy. And even if that means adding classes, we'll do it to meet the demand.
Right.
So it doesn't cost anything to apply, but more important, it doesn't cost you anything to come here other than your time, and you pay for your meals while you're on campus.
Right.
So we'll provide the transportation to and from the airport. If you fly here, we'll reimburse you for your airfare. If you drive, we'll reimburse you for your mileage. We'll provide you with lodging. We'll provide you with world-class training with some amazing instructors and all the materials you need. And what we ask you to do is to be engaged in the classes and basically to give us your time and pay for your meal. So it's a pretty great opportunity.
Well, and most departments pay for your food, so there's really no investment monetarily from any firefighter to get up here. It really is just that wanting to come and that investment of time and energy, And like you said, we've said it on this podcast a number of times. The training is great, but my real aha moments, some of those have come from just those interactions with, like you said, somebody from Hong Kong, or somebody. If any of our listeners who listen regularly know that about a year ago I made a pretty decent faux pas on here where I said that somebody from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, but whatever, and I got the wrong department. But that was my aha moment because I was speaking of staffing issues, and somebody from, it wasn't Broken Arrow, again, I apologize to Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, but it was a smaller department, had the exact same staffing issues. And I had that moment where I thought, you know what? I'm outside of my box, and I'm realizing we're not special. Everybody's got these problems.
Yeah, and what I like to tell people is, and I've had a chance and the fortune to travel across the country in my role with the state training directors. But if you've been to one state, you've been to one state. If you've been to one state academy, you've been to one state academy. If you've been to one fire station, you've been to one fire station. Right? What you find out here is the fire service is very similar in each community, but also very different.
Yeah. And there's people with different takes on the problems and different solutions.
Yeah. And the big thing that we look at, and even in 2021, we still have people in the American Fire Service that don't know that there's a National Fire Academy.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Yeah.
so we see about 10% retire each year, either career or volunteer. So, the key is, how does somebody share with them? Like, you're here now.
Right.
You'll probably go back and tell others in your department, look, you need to go to the National Fire Academy. You're mentoring that person, that man or woman in your organization. You're looking out for them, saying, here's what you should do. You'll probably say, you should go to the National Fire Academy.
Yeah. No, and I would instantly plug for anybody listening that's serious about firefighting. The Command and Control series, excellent classes. I took Command and Control for
Multi-alarm,
right. And I took Target Hazards, and those are great classes.
Right.
And no, you're not pulling hose, but that's as close. I mean, you are commanding incidents.
Right.
That's unit level stuff.
Yeah.
So if you think there's nothing here like that, you're wrong. It's totally something that everybody anybody in the fire service can appreciate.
Yeah, and as I mentioned in my background, right, one of the things that your listeners should keep in mind is maybe you start at a 2-day state class offered by the National Fire Academy. So contact your state training academy in your state.
Right.
Ask them when the National Fire Academy classes are. So, like for tactics and strategy, incident command, maybe you cut your teeth on a 2-day class that we're offering in the state, and then you kind of get your appetite wet, and you say, you know what, I want more. And then eventually you'll come here on campus. And what I will tell people is, once you come here, you'll come back.
Yeah. Yeah. And you literally make friends for life.
Yes.
Because you end up calling these people, and there's groups that we've got from year 1 and year 2. And I know Hatch and I regularly communicate with somebody that we were in class with 6 years ago.
Right.
Yeah,
some classes start Facebook pages, as you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, we had a state weekend here we hosted for Pennsylvania earlier this month. We had a group of individuals from the Pennsylvania State Weekend that have been coming to State Weekend for more than 15 years.
Wow.
And they sign up as a group for the class, and each year they take a different class, and they truly love it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it is. Kind of unique and kind of awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you've already answered my next question of, can you get the same training at other places, which was, at the state level.
Yes.
So specific to what's going on right now in the world, how has the pandemic affected operations here at the National Fire Academy?
So we have been working through our health and safety protocols, just like all your listeners have since last year. Right. We suspended in-person training on campus last March because what we knew is that we couldn't meet the guidelines at that time for social distancing, face covering. And we also knew our first responders weren't going to be traveling anywhere, right? So they were going to stay at home. They're going to take care of their communities, take care of their families, and people were going to travel. And at that point, really, people were disencouraged. Well, they weren't going to travel, right? So we had to work on our protocol so that we could reopen. We never stopped training. So we did 2 things. One is that we continue to work with our state partners to keep those regional delivery classes going. Now, what we ran into is with some states is they were prohibited from bringing groups of people together, so they suspended training altogether. So they, in essence, said, we can't offer your classes right now. But what we knew is other states wanted to and could and had students, so we reallocated those classes to other states that could. I'll use an example. South Carolina, had a campus large enough with their fire academy that they could bring in students of classes of 30 and put them in an auditorium where they could be 6 feet apart, and we're able to deliver the training. So South Carolina picked up more classes in the past. We did the same thing with Georgia. So we moved a lot of classes around to states that had the capacity and the infrastructure to do it. So we didn't want to lose those training opportunities. The other thing that we did, much like a lot of fire departments did, is we found out other ways to do business. And we went to Zoom for the first time. And not that Zoom is the end-all, be-all. It's a very basic platform. But we identified 10 classes, 2-day classes here, that we could convert to Zoom. We could deliver through Zoom, and we were able to get the information across. Now, those classes were classroom-specific. So basic fire investigation. So for that new officer that's going to go to a fire that doesn't want to wash evidence away, doesn't want to walk through evidence, right? So that class is perfect for Zoom. So our fire investigation team converted that to Zoom and has trained thousands of people over the last year in that. We saw the same thing, for example, in incident safety officer and health and safety officer, 2 classes that don't require the campus, but we were able to convert that curriculum to a Zoom format, well received. We have a list of more than 300 people still that want to take incident safety officer. in a Zoom format. So we found the right classes for that right platform, and the others we either did through the states or we just had to unfortunately pause here on campus until it was safe to reopen. So Zoom has worked for us. The state deliveries have worked for us. And then roughly 20 weeks ago, we were able to reopen the campus here in Emmitsburg. So the health and safety protocol is very similar to what you're seeing locally. Mandatory face coverings, we went back to that 2 weeks ago for all people indoors. Proof of vaccination, or you get tested here on campus. Obviously, we're cleaning more than ever, and the campus is always beautiful, well taken care of.
Yeah.
But each night when you leave and go back to your dorm room, our facilities people miss the classrooms and make sure they're cleaned appropriately under CDC guidelines, and food service is following all the protocols. So really, that's the change. So what we have said is that your experience on campus won't change. There'll be more focus on health and safety, but we're not going to cut corners on how we deliver training. We're not going to cut corners in the classroom experience, and we're not going to cut corners in the student experience. So while, yes, there's more emphasis on wearing face coverings, self-check, symptoms, all those kind of things, going through the protocol here with vaccinations, the classroom experience really is no different.
Right. No, when I got the packet in advance of coming, and I was like, golly, look, there's maps, and I'm not gonna, but it's almost like going to Disney World the first time.
Yes.
An hour into it, and you're like, okay, I get it.
Right.
I know where to go. I know what to do. Every morning I do the same thing. I go get checked off, and then it's off to class, and it's, it is as back to normal as I could say it could possibly be. It really, it's other than everybody's got a mask on, and that's pretty much it.
Yes.
You're not at full capacity right now, but everything's open. And, as far as putting in for class and capacity and stuff like that, I've never been here in a class that wasn't full.
Right.
I want the listeners to understand that, everybody can come here.
Yes. Every
firefighter has a ticket to get here, but it is competitive, and getting here is kind of a cool thing.
Right.
It's a neat thing to get into a class and to come up here and just have this experience.
Right. And I'll build on that because it's not just for firefighters. And I know that's not what you meant, right?
Right.
But we have people that do fire service budgets. We have people that do safety and health that are not firefighters, right? They're occupational medicine people that are joining fire departments and providing that service. So they're coming here to find out what the National Fire Academy is offering. So really, if you are in the fire service, either career or volunteer, we have classes that are available to you. So find them on the catalog and come on down.
Right. Okay. So what are you? I know what are you working on as the National Fire Academy? That is kind of, we already talked about being on the future and the kind of cutting edge, but where is the fire service going, or where is the National Fire Academy trying to take it under your leadership?
So we're doing a couple of different things. I'll start with the people side. So obviously one of the things that we want to do is to make sure that the National Fire Academy student population and instructor cadre represents the American Fire Service in the communities we serve. So we're working to get more women on campus, more women as instructors, more students of color. So brown, black, Asian, we want them to come here and take classes. We also want them to be instructors. So we're reaching out for some of those underrepresented populations here on campus to let them know about our opportunities. So specifically, we're working with the affinity group, so Women in Fire, Black Chiefs Officers Committee. We're working with the Hispanic Firefighters Association, and we're sending them information on our classes and our openings so they can get it out to their members, because they have a very specific membership that they can reach out to, and they support professional development. So it's great. One of those things, how can you argue about it? So we want to see that group more represented here on campus. We're also reaching out to hire more instructors that are underrepresented here on campus, and we're getting some pretty good feedback. Not where we want to be yet, but we're still working on it, and we know we have to. We're working on updating the Executive Fire Officer program. So we have the legacy program right now that you and your classmates are going through.
Right. I'm in my fifth year of my
we're glad to get you
program.
back, right? Because we lost 2020, so we're trying to make up. We promised to get you through by 2022, so we're working on that. But we're also updating the new curriculum, and the new curriculum for EFO really was changed for two specific reasons. One is the feedback we heard was that 4 years was just too long. And
Yeah.
I know you would say 5 years is
Well,
even longer.
that's a
Right.
joke.
I
I'm
know.
really only in my third year. So
Right. But what we saw with executive fire officer, by the end of the 4-year program, a lot of those individuals were ready to retire.
Yeah.
So they said, look, I would have loved this to be shorter. But we also work with the Board of Visitors who said, we don't mind shorter. So 2 years is fine, but we want the academic rigor to be higher.
Yeah.
And that's something we've also heard, for example, from the city managers, from fire boards that hire fire chiefs. And what we heard loud and clear is that when we're hiring a fire chief or an assistant chief or a deputy chief, we're not hiring the chief firefighter. We're hiring the fire chief. We want them to be that executive that can manage the fire department and look at it with business principles. So budget, personnel management, fleet, procurement, right? A strategic plan, being able to come in and meet with the city council and say, this is where we want to be in 5 years. Community risk reduction, prevention strategy, staffing, you name it. So we wanted to make sure that the EFO program, as it's being updated, not only covers that, and your program's getting a lot of those elements, but it's taken you 4 years to get there.
Yeah.
The new program, 2 years, we're going to compress the time, but we're not going to compress the quality, right? So you're still going to have to learn all those things. You're just going to be going to class a lot more. But the other thing is all those classes will be at the graduate level, where right now the current EFO is at the bachelor's level. So the academic rigor is going to be higher through the rubrics that we're creating. And our goal for that is that once you graduate the EFO program, if you don't already have a bachelor, well, you have to have a bachelor's degree to get in the program. But if you don't have a master's degree, you could sit down with your college counselor and say, look, I finished the EFO, look at the ACE accreditation, which is the American College of Education, and say, look at all this training I've done, look at this educational experience I have, what will you give me credit toward for my master's? So you might be 15, 30 credits away, but that's money you don't have to spend to get that master's. And what that does is for your elected officials, your leadership team, you could say, look at the academic rigor that the men and women that are in leadership positions here at our agency have. So that's one of the other projects we have in motion. The other two, or three, I'll add the third one, but the other two that are active right now is we have a simulation lab here on campus that allows us to develop incident managers. So we have a multi-computer system here that we can put different buildings up that show those buildings on fire. The fires can spread, the fires can go down, so we can control that through technology. And we're letting incident management teams basically do that here on campus. But that technology is getting a little tired. So we're in the process of replacing that right now. But the other thing that we're going to do as we replace it is also go into the heads-up display mode. So the students, as they look at the building, will be able to look at it through the goggles that they're wearing and see the fire that way. So as they look to the left, look to the right, look up or down, they'll actually see what a fire officer would see at the scene. So that's something that we're pretty excited about because it's something that we have a niche in with the simulation lab, and it's something that we're pretty excited about. So that's coming very soon, and we hope to have it in business by the beginning of the year. The other thing, the other thing, well, another reason for you to come back.
Well, I'm not going to stop.
And the other thing that we're working on is in our fire plans class where people come in and do fire planning, right? So the codes, looking at sprinkler systems, looking at risers, all those different things that a lot of firefighters take for granted, right? That's somebody else's job. But those fire inspectors, those plans examiners, they need to know their business when they sign off on those blueprints. So we are in the process of adding digital tables to our lab for fire plans. So instead of rolling out the maps like a lot of people are used to, a lot of fire agencies have gone to digital blueprints. So we'll have the tables there so we can do digital as well.
You can do like Minority Report with the screens.
We'll have the whole thing.
We'll get Tom Cruise.
So pretty creative. And then the last thing is a multi-year project, but we're upgrading our burn range here where we train fire investigators. So we are very proud to have a relationship with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the ATF. They have agents assigned here at the National Fire Academy who are certified fire investigators, and they have a vested interest in making sure that the men and women that are doing fire investigations have a good base of knowledge, have skills and abilities. So we have a number of programs here for fire investigators, and we're upgrading the burn range where we actually bring in furniture from different locations. We set up buildings to look like a house, a business, whatever. We set them on fire, knowing where the fire started and how they started. And then when they're extinguished a few days later, the investigator students will come down and basically get to process that scene as if it were real, because it is real for them. It's a fire that happened, and they're investigating. And we also just recently added an accelerant dog to campus. So
I met him this afternoon.
Yes. Yeah. So Dublin is a great resource. Our instructor who came to us, he has a canine accelerant dog. So we want our students to see what tool that dog, that resource is, right? So they get a chance to work with an accelerant dog here on campus, just so they know what the capabilities are. So it's pretty exciting what's going on.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a question that isn't on the list.
Okay.
So if you've never been here, there's a helipad out front, and the story, and Camp David is like
very close.
Yeah, over the hill.
Yes.
And the story is always that if Marine One lands and you take a picture of Marine One, they're going to come take your phone, and everybody gets the same warning, and everybody, and I actually just missed the president, I guess, because I came in Sunday later in the afternoon, and I guess he flew out Sunday midday because he was at Camp David on Friday when I last checked, and then I heard that so is that one of those urban legends, or have people actually had their phones taken? Do you know?
I have never heard of anybody having their phone taken.
Okay.
I do know that Camp David is close to our campus.
Right.
We have the same security posture as Camp David, so we're a Homeland Security facility.
Okay.
So you just can't drive onto our campus and walk around and take pictures. So you have to have a reason for being here or to be an approved guest. But we do have a very good relationship with Camp David and also Raven Rock, which is nearby also, which is part of the Department of Defense.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, no, I had hoped I was going to see Marine One land, but I missed it.
You never know. It could happen this afternoon. Yeah.
All right. So let's.
Did you want to talk about the tunnels on campus next?
Well, I only heard about that this afternoon.
Sure.
I mean, I really didn't know there were tunnels.
There are tunnels.
And those are, because this used to be university, right?
This used to be a Catholic college.
Yeah.
So what happened is that Mount St. Mary's was built just down the street from us. The college here closed, and they were looking to sell it to someone, and that's when America Burning came out. So thanks to a number of individuals, they identified this as a location close to Washington, D.C. that would be perfect.
Right.
And as you know from being here, you couldn't ask for a better campus to be at.
Yeah, no. It's ideal, but why would a Catholic university need tunnels?
It's a great question, and it's an easy answer, because next to us is Elizabeth Ann Seton, and they have a steam plant. So this campus used to have steam coming next door, so this whole area was fed by steam from a steam plant for our heating and our hot water. We've moved away from that, right? So we're moving to go off the grid with solar panels and things like that. But the tunnel still exists for the steam.
That makes sense,
right?
Somebody was asking why there was so much open space with lawn around here.
Right.
And I kept saying, well, it's all the silos. They got silos underground, because we're gonna, it's Homeland Security, so we've got missiles here. But no, tunnels. Okay, no, that makes total sense. Not nearly as mysterious as I was hoping.
No, but you can make it a great story if you want to. You can tell people you've been into the tunnels.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. What are you reading right now? I like to ask people that.
So I'm reading Simon Sinek, which is Start With Why.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And I'm not knocking fire service publications, because they're a great wealth of information, but I also want to kind of be diversified,
right?
And read business journals, read business articles, read the newspaper every day to find out what's going on with current events across the country. But Simon Sinek is, why?
Yeah.
Right. Because often, right, and if you think about like our new firefighters coming through recruit school, the millennials and whatever else we're going to call the next generation, they want to know why. Why do we do this? Well, we've always done it that way. Well, why?
Did he also write, is it Leaders Eat Last?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I have that on my to-read pile. Yeah. So, all right. Well, what book would you recommend? As much as this is where most of our listeners are turning off as soon as I start talking about books.
Oh, this will be a great one. Yeah.
What book would you recommend for firefighters to read?
Who Moved My Cheese?
Okay.
And the reason is that as a firefighter, We are constantly dealing with emergency issues. We're dealing with non-emergency issues. We're dealing with issues in our fire stations. We're dealing with issues with our coworkers. And usually it's because something was changed. And Who Moved My Cheese is a great book about how the littlest thing could become a big thing for somebody you don't even realize it.
No, you're absolutely right. And
you weren't expecting that, were you?
Well, I've actually got that book on. I have a desk in my office that is books that I get at the used bookstore that are free for the taking for any firefighter that walks in my office, and Who Moved the Cheese is one of those.
There you go.
So, that's a good book. All right, so we actually have a set of questions that we ask all of our guests, and they're very similar to the set of questions that used to get asked to the people that were on the Actors Studio on TV, if you ever saw that. So what is your favorite word or phrase on the fire ground?
All hands working.
Okay. All right. And what is your least favorite word?
That's the way we've always done it, or tradition.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Now, see, that's on my... I actually have a list of phrases that I keep that I tell people that I'm working with that I never want to hear.
Right.
And that's my number one.
Right.
Is because we've always done it that way.
Yeah. And right. So that's the one that drives me crazy. But on the other hand, right, all hands working, when you're listening to that rolling into an incident, you know you're going to be busy.
Yeah.
And you know everybody's tied up. And you also know if you're sitting in a station that they're not coming back for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Those are both good. So engine or truck?
How about rescue or squad? You could do both.
All right.
You could use the hose from the engine company or help with the ladder.
Yep. Okay. All right. So were you on the heavy rescue? Or?
I've done rescue. I've done truck. I've done engine.
Okay.
Tender.
Okay.
So for our East Coast listeners, tanker. For our West Coast listeners,
we're trying to break
tender.
that habit.
I know.
We just bought two of them, and we it took a lot of doing, but we have been consistently calling them tenders.
Yep. Yeah. So tender, also brush truck, and also medic. So
wow.
But rescue, because
no flying?
No flying. No flying. But the nice thing with the rescue or squad, depending on what you want to call it, is that you're going to be busy and do a lot of different things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have an amazing toolbox.
Yeah. Probably the best toolbox.
Yes.
What motivates you?
It's easy. Doing a good job for others.
Okay. And
it's not about me.
How do you know? How do you know you're doing a good job?
It's really by interacting with people, right?
Okay.
So we are in the service industry here at the National Fire Academy. Obviously, we're a training academy.
Right.
We provide classes, training, and education opportunities. But the product, if you will, is having great training, having amazing instructors that can deliver that training, but having students that are engaged and are learning something. So that's how I know, by walking around and asking how we're doing, and just having visits with students either in the cafeteria, at the pub, when we see them in town. Have you learned something?
I will say that, and I've been coming for probably 6 or 7 years, and I've seen previous superintendents, and all of them did fantastic. I have seen you more than I've seen any previous superintendent on any of my stays, and I'm only on my 4th day here for this stay. Yeah. So, you definitely are walking the walk of getting out and talking to the folks and getting that feedback.
And thank you. And it's I hope your people don't think I don't have anything to do.
No,
right?
No.
Because I do. But the students coming here and providing the classes is why we're here. Right. We work for the American Fire Service. So I'm you're my customer.
That's Colin Powell's one of my favorites, and he talked always about getting out and you've got to go talk to the guys that are actually doing it. So
agreed.
All right. So what profession would you most want to do if you weren't in the fire service?
I would be a veterinarian.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just love animals? Or?
I love animals. Animals can't talk to us, but they bring us so much joy and happiness. And, when you see an animal in distress, you want to help, right? Yeah. So it's a natural emotion. So I would love to be a vet, although I probably couldn't do it. It's a very hard profession, but I would like to do something to help animals. Yeah.
So I'm not, should I ask you dog or cat?
We have a cat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not anti-dog?
No, not anti-dog. Because as you know, we have our dog on campus, and he and I interact every day. So we're in a good place.
Okay. And for a while, you had a groundhog on campus.
We have a number of wildlife here on campus. So we have deer, we have groundhog, we have a variety of bird species on campus. Okay. Including geese that don't leave.
No, there's an angry one that when I go running in the afternoon hisses and gets real big because he doesn't like me.
Yeah, well.
And then the groundhog was over underneath the shed And I didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I saw something go underneath the shed, and I asked somebody else. He's like, "Oh yeah, no, that's the groundhog.
Right.
It's huge."
Yes. Well, he eats well.
I had no idea they were that big.
Right. Yeah.
I think I might have been confusing groundhog with prairie dog. All right. So if you were introduced as the keynote speaker at a firefighter conference, what music would you want played as you take the stage?
I couldn't come up with an answer. I'm pretty good about it. Oh, and here's why. Usually if I'm going on stage, I'm thinking about my presentation or what I'm going to say. I really wouldn't hear the music anyway. So I don't have a theme song.
Nothing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
What would you use as my theme song for the 4 days you've seen me?
I hadn't thought about yours. Burning down the house, Talking Heads.
Well, that's kind of a traditional fire theme, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
Okay. But yeah, I don't have one that comes to mind, so I don't have a theme song.
Okay.
I don't have a favorite song on the radio.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. At your retirement, how do you want to be remembered?
As a coach or as a mentor, as a person that helped others.
Right.
Yeah, because it's not about me. And you could talk to people that I've worked with in Oregon, people that I'm working with here. It's about the organization. It's about the mission. It's about the people. It's about our students. It's not about me, right? My job, my career, my profession is to help others be successful, help others be better.
Very much a servant leadership.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And if you could go back and give your rookie self back to that rookie volunteer firefighter in
Many
New
years
Jersey,
ago.
many years ago, what advice would you give yourself?
I jotted down to be patient,
Okay.
that you don't control everything,
Right.
that you cannot fix everything,
Amen.
and to have balance of time, which includes family, work, pleasure, and time for yourself.
Okay. You know, there was I actually had a weird aha moment on the first day, maybe this week. And it was something so I don't think, it might have even been an accident, but somebody listed in one of the PowerPoint presentations, life-work balance.
Yes.
And I have always said work-life balance. And listing it life-work balance shifted the emphasis on life.
You. Yes.
Well, I've always put work first in that work-life balance.
Right.
And it was such when I saw it, I was just like, holy crap. That really kind of changed my perspective because I might have been doing it wrong all these years.
Yeah, and some of that is cultural, right? Because we are rescuers, right? We are first responders. We need to fix everything, right? Yeah. If we see something that doesn't look right, our natural tendency is to fix it.
I fixed the easel over in the J building earlier today.
Thank you. Yeah. But if you think about it, if you're going past an emergency, let's say a car accident on your way home, and I hope that doesn't happen, but your natural instinct would be to stop.
Yeah.
Right. And if somebody was seriously hurt and you're with your family and the medics go, look, can you jump in the ambulance with us? We need an extra set of hands and go to the hospital. Yep. You would probably say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the way we're wired, right? But sometimes we get overconsumed with that and we forget the family, we forget our friends, and we need to have that life-work balance.
Okay. Well, Superintendent Eriks Gabliks, I messed that up. Superintendent Eriks Gabliks, I really appreciate you talking with me today. It's kind of tradition on our podcast to end an episode with a bunch of wells because we all sit around and just go, well, and that's the end. But since I'm the only one here, I'm going to ask you for a well. So, well, there we go. Okay. And that's it.
I'm in.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate your time.
All right. Combustible is available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Amazon, and everywhere else you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to Combustible to make sure you don't miss out on an episode. Follow us on Facebook so we know how many of you listeners there are out there. And you can check us out online at combustiblethepodcast.com. As always, we would like to thank the Golden Dogs and True North Records for letting us use their song Saints at the Gates for our theme music. You can find the Golden Dogs music on any streaming platform. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you later.